Ramanujan for G is now available on the Google Play Store. Try it out for free.
Good morning, students. So in our last class, we had just started S block elements, particularly what their chemistry and how do they react, what are their properties, or something that we have started with what are the S block elements. And these first two group elements, group 1 and group 2, which were earlier known as 1A and 2A. So now we call it as group 1 and group 2. These elements are called S block elements. And why they are called S block elements? Because we have seen that while writing their electronic configuration, we put last electron into the S subcell. And since S subcell contains 2 electrons, so we'll have two groups. And so the first group and second groups comes, and first group is the alkali metal group, and the second group is the alkaline earth metal group. And this we know, alkali metal groups: lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, francium. And the alkaline earth metals: beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium, and radium. These two elements we will mostly not focus on because they are radioactive and usually their chemistry are not that much known. So chemistry, it's basically the reactivity and some other properties, their interactions with the material or electromagnetic radiation. This is what we study in chemistry. So anyway, so we started with later on the alkali metals, and we saw that alkali metals, all the alkali metals has outermost electronic configuration similar to this. Means the electronic configuration of one noble gas followed by ns1 electron, and this is all we see. The noble gas, then ns1, 2s1 in the case of lithium, and then neon 3s1. Means this is ns1 we call in general. N could be 1 2 3 to 7. So usually not 1. When n is 1, it is hydrogen. So we start with n is equal to 2 to 7 for alkali metal. So alkali metals are n is equal to 2 to 7, and outermost electronic configuration when we write ns1. And then few things that we have seen, those are not the few things only I'm going to explain. So we came up to here, the ionization enthalpy. And ionization enthalpy, that we have seen that alkali metals, it increases down the group. This is, sorry, ionization enthalpy decreases down the group. And ionization enthalpy, what it is? The energy required to remove one electron from the outermost shell. And what we have seen, the effective nuclear charge decreases down the group because the atomic size increases. And because of the increase in atomic size, effective nuclear charge decreases. And effective nuclear charge decreases means the attraction of the nucleus on the outermost electron is weaker. And when this is weaker, so we need to provide less energy to remove an electron, and that is why ionization enthalpy decreases down the group in the alkali metals. Alkali metal group, or mean the first group, which is usually, which is true for almost all the group elements, but we are focusing here particularly some anomalies we have seen. We see there in the ionization enthalpy, but that is exception. Those are anomalies. That is why we see. So the first, when we talk about ionization enthalpy, usually talk about the first ionization enthalpy and first ionization enthalpy. That is what the trend we look at. Then in the case of alkali metals, mostly the second ionization enthalpy is, it's a very difficult to ionize second electron, remove second electron from the nucleus, because after removing one electron, alkali metals get the electronic configuration of nearest noble gas. And that's why from there removing an electron is very difficult. And second difficulty is, once you removed one electron, it is already one cation. It is positively charged. So effective nuclear charge increases just significantly. So if you want to remove one electron further, it will be very difficult. Then let us look at this oxidation state. This is what we are going to start. Up to the ionization enthalpy I have already explained. So, and ionization, and regarding ionization enthalpy, one more thing that I would just want to mention, that in a particular period, ionization enthalpy for alkali metals are least. So least means it is smallest in that particular period. For the lithium, it will be smallest in all the elements that are there in that period, and it will be the second period. So similarly, the sodium, third period element, its ionization enthalpy is least in all the elements that are there in the same period. If you look at the periodic long form of periodic table that we usually see. in books or anywhere else. So let us look at the oxidation state, and I have, while defining oxidation states earlier when the redox chemistry, I have said that alkali metals always show plus one oxidation state. If you remember, so they always show plus one oxidation state because they can easily, readily remove one electron if some acceptor is there. It is required. If there is no acceptor, it cannot remove its electron, because we know the ionic forms are not stable until unless we provide some stability from something else. Like NaCl, the salt, it is neutral, electrically neutral. When we put it into the water and some hydration, because of the hydration energy it gets from the water molecules, it is, that's why it gets ionized. Otherwise it is always electrically neutral, so the ions will be not be separated. Similarly, electrons, very tiny particle, very highly reactive, it will not be freely, not find, will found freely, so it will immediately react with the same plus ion and go back until unless some acceptor is not there. But usually when we talk about this oxidation or ionization enthalpy, that is implicit there. If you talk ionization enthalpy, it means it is implicit that some acceptor of the electron is already there, and so the acceptor tendency will also have certain influence on the ionization enthalpy that we somehow negate by some tricks. The calculation, that is not our problem, but for the understanding purpose, I wanted to say that some electron acceptors are there. Anyway, whatever the tendency of this metal ion to give electron is, this is what we talk in the ionization enthalpy. And if the ionization enthalpy is low, it can easily remove it, can easily give its electron, and it will become M plus. And that is what we see the oxidation state of alkali metals. So it is, oxidation state is somewhat associated with the ionization enthalpy. So the alkali metals show plus one oxidation state, and they always show plus one oxidation state in a compound. It's not in the neutral or the elemental form. You should always remember it's in compound, not in the elemental form. So in a compound, for whenever it forms a compound, any type of compound, it will always have plus one oxidation state. And this is because they can easily lose their valence electrons and change into unipositive ions. And the reason is that due to low ionization enthalpy, the alkali metals can easily lose their electrons, valence electrons, and gain a stable noble gas configuration. This is what we have already seen. But they do not form M2 plus ion, because I have explained the second ionization enthalpy is very high for them. So we need to provide a very high energy, and that we usually we do not do. That is not energetically efficient, because you want to ionize electron to have, because of certain purposes, and if that purpose is there, if you have to provide a lot of energy, that is not a feasible form for us in chemistry. That is what the second ionization enthalpy usually we don't talk about when we talk about the ionization or the oxidation state of alkali metals. So the alkali metals, metal ions M plus, do not have unpaired electrons. So this is what we know. So M plus, if it gets electronic configuration of a noble gas, nearest noble gas, and nearest noble gas, if you see the electronic configuration of any noble gas, you will see all the electrons are always paired, because all the electrons, that is the orbitals that are there, they all are fully filled. All the orbitals where electron goes in any noble gas, they are always fully filled. Means all orbitals contain two electrons. They are fully filled, and those two electrons will be oppositely spin. There will be an opposite spin, alpha and beta spins were there. So they are paired. And since they are paired, so alkali metals in M plus form means all of their compounds, they are mostly diamagnetic. Diamagnetic means they do not have any unpaired electrons. Some properties of diamagnetic we have seen. They are weakly repelled by magnetic field and some other things. Mostly it is recognized as presence of no unpaired electrons. So if a compound, if a material has no unpaired electron, it is a diamagnetic. So M plus do not have any unpaired electrons. So these compounds, particularly the M plus salt compounds, they are diamagnetic. Some alkali metal salt may be colored, and since they are diamagnetic, so they also do not impart colors, because the electrons are not there so easily to be excited to some other state. So in M plus, because you know these other electrons are very strongly bound in the because they got the electronic configuration of noble gas. Their now the effective nuclear charge and increase it, their electrons are now the remaining electrons are very strongly bound. They will not easily be even they will not easily get excited to higher states. So they also do not impart any color usually. And if they impart color, you have to provide a lot of energy, and that energy will not be in the visible range. This is what you should understand. You can still excite those electrons, but those that light and that range, the frequency of that light which gets to excite electrons will be not in the visible range. It may be the UV range or something, and UV range we know we cannot see it because it's not in the visible range. We see certain light or certain color when it is in the visible range, and whatever the range in the visible range, whether it is the red, blue, whatever color, when it gets de-excites, those electrons get de-excites, they release those energy, and with the wavelength of that energy we see the color. And that is not there because this gap is very high. A gap is high, it means the energy that we need to provide is far beyond the visible range. And if you remember the spectrum of the electromagnetic radiation I have explained earlier, the visible range is a very small, very a small band for the visible is approximately 400 nanometer to 800 nanometer. So some alkali metal salts may be colored due to presence of colored ions, and we have seen, like if you remember the potassium permanganate. Potassium permanganate is pink in color, it's a violet color. So it's a pinkish violet color, and you see it is colored, but its color is not because of the K plus. The color is because of the permanganate ion. This is MnO4 minus ion, and MnO4 minus ion because the manganese there. Manganese, the electron transfer happens in this compound of anion, the complex anion, this anion. So that is how we see the color because of that anion, not because of the alkali metal. Similarly, potassium dichromate, it also shows orange color, and this orange color is not because of the K plus, it is because of the dichromate ion, Cr2O7 minus ion. So this is orange. So you should understand this color will not be because of the K plus. This color in the certain salts may come because of the anion and the nature of anion, not because of the K plus or the nature of the electronic configuration of the alkali metal. So the let's look into the hydration enthalpy, and whenever the hydration enthalpy, we have seen it, these definitions used in the thermodynamics. So hydration enthalpy, usually if you put certain ion into an aqueous solution, so hydration is always for the aqueous solution, and when you put it in the water, and what we will see that whether it is cation or anion, the water will surround that cation or anion, and with the surrounding there will be some attraction. If it is cation like the sodium, you see the negative pole of water will be attracted towards N plus. The negative pole of water is at the oxygen atom, that we know, and the positive pole is towards the H plus, hydrogen atoms. So they are positive, slightly positive charge. So water has a dipole, that you know. So it has a net dipole in this direction, and net dipole, it means what will have it, the positive pole will be negative pole will be attracted towards the sodium. When the ion is negatively charged ion, so what we see, the positive pole of water molecule is attracted towards that. And so this kind of that electrostatic interaction, so you can say ion dipole interaction is there, and this because of that some stabilization will happen. And this, since electrostatic interactions are very long range, if you look at the covalent character, you need to have the overlap of orbitals, and if these two atoms are farther, the orbitals cannot overlap, because we know that orbital and the atomic radius is something like that. So beyond, if the two atoms they are together and their atomic radius is larger than, some of the atomic radii is larger than their distance, so their orbitals will not overlap. So there is no covalent character. But even if they are farther and they have certain charge, they can interact at the farther distances, and that is why the electrostatic interactions are there. Then more details if you look at the particle physics, that is not in your syllabus, so you will get the electrostatic interactions are the long range forces. When the long range forces will be there, the water molecule here, it will interact. Water molecules which will be here, they will also get arranged. So this is we call the first layer or first hydration cell. Then over that second hydration cell is formed. Over that third hydration cell is formed. Usually up to the second hydration cell, we see lot of organization is there. And so this attraction is very strong up to the second hydration cell. However, people have also seen in this that the third, fourth hydration cell that attractions are not negligible. However, let me also say one thing. Depending on this, the Na plus it has a vacant orbital. You know, it's a vacant orbital Na plus will have, and oxygen also has lone pair. So these they come closer. If you look at the layer distance, it comes around 1.84 angstrom. And with the sodium here, this is the ionic radii. Don't get confused with this. I am saying distance between Na plus and O. This comes around 1.84, and 1.84 is a distance where some covalent character will also be there. Some orbital overlap will also be there. So we see certain covalent character here as well. So usually six water molecules surround one Na plus ion. So in the first hydration cell, and then in the second hydration cell, 12 water molecules come and surround the first hydration cell. This is how it goes. And because of that, we get certain energy is released because of these attractive interactions. Whenever there is attractive interactions, energy is always released, and that energy is released, so this ion gets certain stability. And that energy, whatever the energy that is released in the form of heat, that energy actually it is released in the form of heat, and that energy we call the hydration energy. So the heat energy released when new bonds are made, these new bonds could be covalent, like in the case of aluminium 3 plus. When we are defining hydration energy, it is not only for the alkali metals, like aluminium 3 plus. If you see its distance is 1.61 angstrom. You don't worry about this distance. You don't have to remember these distances. So the just the trend you can understand. The aluminium it has 3 plus charges, and also because of 3 plus charge there in the same period, its ionic radius is very small. Aluminium 3 plus ionic radius is a small 3 plus charge, so those water molecules come much closer to aluminium, and so we see certain overlap. And that bond, aluminium and water in the first hydration cell, it is more like a covalent bond. It's not like an ionic bond that we see here, ion dipole type interaction. That is more in the case of sodium plus, but in the case of aluminium 3 plus, it is more towards the covalent bonding. So this could be this interaction between them, the bonds between them could be purely covalent or electrostatic, or maybe the intermediate between them. So the ions and water molecules is the interaction, the bonds between ion and water molecules which is formed, and the energy that is released during that formation and that interaction, you can say maybe the weak interaction, is known as hydration enthalpy of the ion. Hydration could be for any, even the covalent molecules, like even the if you put ammonia in the water molecules, some water molecules surround it. Ammonia, though it doesn't have it, so that energy that will be released, light energy, little energy, that is also hydration energy, but that is for the neutral molecule, so it is very small in the magnitude in the comparison to the ions, any ion. So this is how the hydration energy means, how hydration enthalpy is defined. And if the solvent is not water, if there any other solvent is there other than water, then we call solvation enthalpy or solvation energy. So the hydration energy or hydration enthalpy is also a solvation enthalpy. Solvation means any solvent is there, and when it is particularly the water, because most of the reactions that we study in day-to-day life and also in the living form, we see the water is the solvent. So we define a special term we have given for water, and that we call the hydration energy. If the hydration energy or hydration enthalpy of an ion is high means what? So more energy is released, and more energy is released means a very strong interaction is between the ion and the water dipole. It means that the hydrated ion is very stable. Now the hydrated ion means the ion surrounded by water molecules is now in the very stable condition, and now it is stable. So hydration occurs because attraction of lone pair of electrons on oxygen atom with a positive charge in the case of alkali metals, because they are always positive charged, and so it will always be the negative pole of water will come towards this alkali metal. So there will be ion dipole interaction. So stronger the attraction, more is hydration, greater will be the hydration enthalpy. This is what we have already seen. If the positive charge density is large, as we see, I have compared here with the sodium and aluminium of the same period element. You can sodium cation, magnesium cation, aluminium cation, you can compare. So charge density is increasing from sodium then magnesium to aluminum. The similar trend you can see also in the same group of the group of alkali metals. Usually what we see, the as you go down the group, atomic radii or ionic radii increases on moving down the group, but the charge is the unique positive charge, a single positive charge. So what happens, the size is increasing, charge is same, so charge density decreases on going down the group. So that is what we say. So stronger the attraction was greater with hydration enthalpy. Positive charge density is large, it's high. Actually, we should write. So there will be more attraction and hence more hydration enthalpy. It means hydration enthalpy should be more for the lithium ion. Why? Its size is smallest and the charge is same in all the cases. And it should be for the sodium ion, sodium cation, it should be a hydration enthalpy should be smaller than lithium cation. So we should get a trend here, and the list should be for the cesium cation. And if you look at this energy, the value of energy, you see the clear distinct trend in this direction. And this is because the charge density, positive charge density is decreasing. A positive charge density is decreasing. It means what? In other way, the sodium, if you look at the lithium cation to cesium cations, you see the effective nuclear charge will also decrease because the cations, in this cation, its size is large. So the effect of nucleus will be least on the outermost or the radius of that electron, where or the outermost circuit of that atom, that ion, and where any negative pole of a water molecule will come and interact. And so at particular point, at a particular distance, the effect of nucleus or the net positive charge which is inside the nucleus actually, so that will be least in the case the size of a cation is maximum. And that is why, that is another way to just interpret the same thing. So what we get, this is the trend that we get. So don't worry about these values. You don't have to mug up these values. You just remember the trend. And the trend means the hydration enthalpy decreases down the group. And why it is decreases down the group? The ionic radii increases because of the ionic radii charge density is increasing. Also, the distance between the ion and the dipole, water dipole, is increasing, and the distance is increasing. So what will happen? The electrostatic interactions, if you remember, the distance comes in the Coulomb's equation as r square, and the denominator. So what will happen? The r square, if the r is increasing, the attraction will be decreasing, and the attraction is decreasing, so the hydration enthalpy will be least. So the hydration enthalpy, if you look at the general trend, it depends on it's directly proportional to the charge. And we know why, because this is the electrostatic interactions, and the Coulomb equation, it is Q1 into Q2 is there in the numerator. Please read those equations if you are in the class 11th, particularly you may not, I don't know whether currently the electrostatic chapter is in the class 11th or 12th in the physics. Particularly in my time, it was the class 12th. So those who are from the class 12, they can understand this equation. Otherwise, you just remember the class 7th, those who have not studied electrostatic, the force of attraction or even the energy of attraction, it depends. Energy, it is depends on the proportional to Q1 into Q2, that is charge divided by R of energy, and R, which is the distance between two ions or two charges. So the R, so inversely proportional to the size. Because the size is increasing, the distance will be increasing between ion and the water dipole, because with the size, the distance will be there. And so that is why if the charge is more, the hydration enthalpy will be decreased, or directly proportional to the charge size ratio, because the proportional to charge and inversely proportional to size. So what we get, the charge size ratio that is there in the equation, because what you see, the water molecules, if you suppose that the same charge will be there, like Q1 is for the what belongs to the water dipole, and what will be the Q2 for the cation, the alkali metal cation, and R is the distance between them. So Q2 divided by R, that one term that we get, that could be one factor, and that is what we see, the Q2 divided by R is, suppose it is L, so it is directly proportional to L. So charge to size ratio, if it is increasing, so the hydration enthalpy will be increasing. So for group 1 elements, charge is constant. That is what we know. So that I have also explained, just to just revise it again, just repeating it again. So single positive charge. Hence the hydration enthalpy is inversely proportional to the size for alkali metals, because charge is constant in all the cations of the alkali metals. Hence, we can say that hydration enthalpy is maximum for lithium cation, even without doing any calculation, without knowing any value. This is why we are reading this, because we may not need to remember these values, this data. We need to calculate, even suppose if this data was or this number was not given by the experiments. Whether you get certain trend, you understand that trend or not. This is what the chemistry is. So without knowing these values that are shown here in this table, you should have certain idea about the hydration enthalpy, and this is what we go by the concept. So the hydration enthalpy is maximum for the lithium amongst the group 1 elements, and it decreases as we move down the group. And at which number we have seen, there are some other parameters under uh, properties as well, and that we know these are summarized here. These properties I have explained here. The relative atomic mass, it will be increasing. That is a very common sense thing, and you also know, because with the atomic number it will also be increasing. Metallic radius we have seen, and the ionization energy or ionization enthalpy we have seen. The first ionization enthalpy is decreasing down the group. Second ionization enthalpy will also decrease, but that is not the one that we are focusing on. This is not desirable thing for us currently. So electron affinity, you see, it will be also decreasing, because the smaller atoms electron affinity is what? If you add one electron to a neutral atom, and add electron, if the electron is if the atom is smaller in size, what we will see, the added electron will see a stronger attraction with the nucleus, and so the electron affinity, that energy released, will be more for the smaller atom. This is what we see the trend. So anyway, and the electronegativity, something like electronegativity also decreases down the group. These things we have explained in the periodic property. Anyway, for general, for all the group elements, and this is something that we see here in the for the alkali metals as well. The trend that you know, and that we understand this trend. And the electronegativity, you see these values. With the values, the trend, you get better feeling of the trend. You see it is decreasing of the Pauling scale. This is, though it looks same, but on the third place of the decimal, there is certain change. So that is anyway not important for us to remember. Those values are not much different, but there is certain trend definitely there. Now looking at the physical appearance, the physical appearance, we have seen all the alkaline earth metals and alkali metals, they have silvery white, they are silvery white, soft and soft. Usually the alkali metals are softer than alkaline earth metals. So these alkali metals are silvery white, they are soft, and they are light metals. Why they are light metals? Because their density is less, and this is what we have seen last time in our last class. And the density is less because their atomic radius is highest in that particular period. Forget about the noble gases, because for the noble gases, some other type of radius is defined. So other than that, you see it is atomic radius is highest and highest, but they have a strong interaction. They form metallic bonding, and metallic bonding is there, so they can be in the solid form. However, in the case of alkali metals, they have a very weak van der Waals interaction, so they do not form solid or something like that. They are usually in the gaseous state. So that is why we don't compare their things. So density for these other period elements in the same period, we see they are lightest, their density usually lowest, and so they are light, they are soft. You can simply cut them through the knife. You see other metals like iron, copper, silver that we see usually, you cannot cut them very easily with the knife. You can still cut silver or aluminum with the knife, but they are comparatively harder, and it is very difficult to cut actually copper and iron. But in the case of alkali metals, you can simply cut them through simple knife. They're very soft. And why they are soft? Because of the metallic, the bonding that exists between different atoms is very weak. And if the attraction between different atoms are weak, you can simply break those attraction by simple any force you apply, whether you provide heat or you provide some mechanical energy. That is why we provide through the heat, through the knife. So we can simply cut them. They are softer, and so the melting and boiling point, what we say, the melting and boiling point of alkali metals that we compare, and the melting and boiling point of alkali metal in the pure metal. And pure metal, they are in the zero oxidation state. When we are talking about the pure metals, they're in zero oxidation state. Their melting and boiling points are low, and indicating weak metallic bonding. And why weak metallic bonding is there? We have seen the metallic bonding, because in metallic bonding there are cations or the metal ions, and then electrons are there in the different places, and the attraction between electrons and metal cations are defined as the bonding and the metallic bonding. If the more electrons are involved in this attraction, the metallic bonding is stronger. So since alkali metals have only one electron in their outermost shell, so there is only one electron that is involved in metallic bonding, so this bonding is weaker. And since this bonding is weaker, so they have very weak attraction between the metals, and so they are soft. Their melting and boiling point is also weak. And why melting and boiling? As I said, so you can separate those atoms through any type of energy that you provide, whether you provide certain mechanical energy, you put them, you push them, anything that, or maybe you provide heat energy, and they will also be separated. And why you provide heat and they will be separated, they become solid to liquid, that is what we call melting. And from the solid to liquid, a liquid from liquid to actually liquid to gas, if they become, so that is what the boiling we call. So the since the metallic bonding is weaker, even in the molten state there is metallic bonding that is there for the metals, and I have explained it earlier. So the melting and boiling point for alkali metals are usually very low. And why it is low? Because it indicates the weak metallic bonding is there, because they have weak metallic bonding. And why the weak metallic bonding is there? The reason is, as I have explained, due to the presence of single valence electrons in them. And single valence electrons are unipositive cations, so both have only one charge, and so that attraction will be not that sufficient, not that significant. Now the characteristic flame color, if you look at the alkali metals, usually some metals, alkali metals, alkaline earth metals, they have characteristics flame. And the characteristics flame means what? You just heat that metal, and after certain time you will see the change in the flame color. That depending on the color of the flame, we can recognize those metals as well. So lithium, you see lithium, if you burn lithium on a flame, you get this color. If you burn sodium on a flame, so you get this color. And burn potassium on the flame, you get above this color, above the flame. And rubidium above the flame, you see this color. Cesium, you see this color. So you see different colors. There is color difference, and this is what we call the characteristic flame color or color for the different alkali metals. The alkali metals and their salts impart a characteristic color to an oxidizing flame. Oxidizing flame is in the presence of oxygen in the open air if you heat it. And why it happens? Actually, oxidizing flame, it means this metal which is neutral, and it can easily can give its electron, and that electron will go to higher energy state. And when it gets a neutral metal, and when it those electrons get back, once they get back to the original other or the ground state, because we know the excited state for any substance is not very stable state, and substances or any material, anything do not stay there in the excited state for the longer time. For anyone, even for us, whether we get excited out of the anger or out of the some very happy moments, we do not stay there for the longer period of time. Maybe for one day or something we will be happy, but most of the time we go back to our usual state that we do not stay. So similarly, these things we get from this uh, chemicals. So these chemical entities, whether ion elements, because this is what they make us, and so our behavior is also controlled by them. So some way there is some analogy with our behavior with those elements that one can draw always certain analogy. So why they have characteristic flame? So this is because the heat from the flame excites the outermost orbital electron to a higher energy level. So this has it goes to the outermost electrons goes to higher energy level. When the excited electrons come back to the ground state, and you should remember the higher energy level excited electrons go, outermost electron goes to higher energy level. That energy gap is not that big, as if this was a cation, pure cation. In the case of pure cation, it will be difficult that energy gap is very high, because the outermost electron is already removed. But in the case of neutral metals, you see that electron is there, that gap is not that big because one cell is already there. And so when the excited electrons come back to the ground state, they emit radiation in the visible region of the spectrum. So when they impart energy, or they release the energy in the visible region of the spectrum, so they impart certain color, because in the visible region, and that whatever the radiation wavelength of that radiation is depending on that we see the color of that radiation. And so that is why the lithium, it gives crimson red, and that you can see the wavelength in the nanometer, it's a 670.8 nanometer. The sodium, it gives golden yellow color, and the wavelength, what you see wavelength is 589.2. The potassium, it is 766.5, and the pale violet color. The rubidium, it's 780, and the cesium, it is 445.5. It is the blue in color. So this is what we see, the different color, red, violet, and different colors. I do not recognize much of the colors particularly, so that is why I need to read these colors. So this lithium is crimson red, sodium is golden yellow. You don't have to remember these wavelengths. That is not much important. These colors you should remember because this is also there in the practical classes. If you are in class 12, or you will go there, and some practicals it will be there. So potassium, it's a pale violet. Some slightly the name in the colors changes with the different books. Rubidium red violet, cesium blue. So these are the colors that these different alkali metals gives their characteristic color, and they color the, we see this color of when we heat these metals or these alkali metals, and that is why we call this flame color. So alkali metals can therefore be detected by respective flame test. So this we call the flame test. So we are, for alkali metals we do flame test, and can be determined by flame photometry or atomic absorption spectroscopy. So atomic absorption spectroscopy is there, AAS, that we tried. That is not in there in your syllabus, but if this name is there in your book, so you can remember. Atomic absorption spectroscopy means absorption, you provide certain heat and electrons will absorb that heat, go to excited state, some state, it will go come back, and based on that, if you provide enough heat, all the electrons can go to the other states, and based on that you can remember how many cells or subcells are there, because if one S cell electron is gets excited and the energy it imparts, you will see the different peaks, and based on that actually experimentally you can find out how many energy levels are there, or the sub energy levels are there in a particular element. And that is what we call the atomic absorption spectroscopy. You heat the element, provide enough heat and enough energy in the whatever the electromagnetic radiation, enough energy, you radiate them, and you will get, actually we provide energy there, it will provide electromagnetic radiation, not the heat, because heat, that is, will have very smaller energy range only. So we provide radiation, and based on that radiation we see different sub energy levels as well. So those are called atomic absorption spectroscopy. So alkali metals can be detected by the respective flame colors, and this we call also the flame photometry. Photometry, you use the light. Photo means light, metry means measurement, and the flame, and with that we get certain color. That's flame photometry. So using flame, if you see certain effect of the light, that is what called flame photometry. So these elements, when means the alkali metals, when irradiated with light, the light energy absorbed may be sufficient to make an atom lose the electron completely. And sometimes this is what we read in the photoelectric effect. So if they are irradiated with the light, that light energy, that frequency that you use, sometimes some energy, when frequency of certain light or some radiation, it would be quite enough to kick out one electron from the metal, and that is we call the photoelectric effect, because you remove electron using photon or the light, and that is called photoelectric effect. So this property makes cesium and potassium useful as electrodes in photoelectric cells. So using this photoelectric effect, that phenomena, we make photoelectric cells. And one of the, the solar cells, one of the initial solar cells that we talk about, they were the photovoltaic cells or photoelectric cells. So standard oxidation potential and reduction potential of alkali metals, if you look at the so that since alkali metals easily lose one NS1 electrons and thus they can have high values of oxidation potential. Sorry, 1 minute. My son. Radha, बच्चे को बाल हो तीसरा है माँ अच्छा आराम है हाँ अकेले hello. Sorry. So, standard oxidation potential, reduction potential. So, these are very important for us to understand reduction potential or oxidation potential. Usually, when we see the electrochemical series, there we always refer reduction potential. The standard reduction potential. With that, what we actually look at the reduction properties of those oxidation potential. You can also say both way you can find out the reduction properties of this reduction properties because these alkali metals they can easily lose their electrons, so they can provide their electrons for the reduction of some other materials or other substances, and so that we call the reduction properties. Since alkali metals easily lose ns1 electron, that is what we know means the outermost shell electron or outermost electron, the last electron, and thus they can have high values of oxidation potential, and high values of oxidation potential means that we see the oxidation potential all they have the reduction potential. If you look at the standard reduction potential, they will be the negative sign, the standard oxidation potential that we see with the positive sign. So these metals that we see, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, this value that we get. So usually what we see, the electropositive character increases down the group. So why the oxidation potential of lithium is high than the cesium? One should expect that this should be highest than the lithium. And this is because when you ionize certain atom or element, it is not there as such in the ionic form. It will not be stable until unless we get stability from something else. And that stability that we gain from some other reactions or other thing, that also affects the standard potential. And what we get when you remove one electron from any neutral metal, what you get, the cation will be formed, that cation will be there in the aqueous solution. So the hydration of the cation will also affect the reduction of oxidation potential. So there is one tendency, that is the ionization enthalpy. So these metals, their tendency to remove electrons or lose electrons is actually donate electrons, or you can say that better, that increases down the group. However, as the atomic sizes increases down the group, their ionization enthalpy, hydration enthalpy is also affected, which is decreases that we have seen down the group. So there will be competition between the electron enthalpy and hydration enthalpy, and so based on that we get certain electrode potential, and that electrode potential is reported here experimental values. The oxidation standard oxidation potential plus 3.05, sodium, for sodium it is plus 2.71, so it is decreases from here to here, then it is slowly increased. So what we see, the decrease is here, though this is a maximum for the lithium because this is the smallest cation, and so it increases now further down the group. So the since alkali metals, so this thing we have seen, the standard oxidation potential of alkali metal in group 5 is this. Metals in uh, that we have seen here is in bold. That is in bold. This is unit. These values are reported in volt. In V is not 5, it is volt, and volt we know the symbol, it's V. So while lithium having a high value of ionization energy amongst alkali metals act as a strongest reducing agent in the solution. If someone asks you this question, so what will be the answer? So the answer I have explained. So why lithium having high high value of ionization energy? So it has high value of ionization energy than other metals. Amongst alkali metals acts as strongest reducing agent in the solution. Why a strongest reducing agent means what? It can easily, one can get that it will most easily remove its electrons. So why it is so? Because ionization enthalpy gives some other trend. So the explanation, the reason is something like this. So ionization energy is the property of an isolated atom in gaseous state. So it's isolated atom, neutral atom in the gaseous state, ionization energy. While the oxidation potential is concerned, when the metal atom goes into the solution, means it forms cation. And when that cation is formed, so the stability of that cation, because any charge, have, as I said, any charged species are not that stable until unless we do certain things happen in certain solutions or some other environment, some other media. Because of that, they get stability. And what happens there? So hydration happens there. So that is why hydration is also working there. So lithium being smallest in size, has high ionization enthalpy, but due to the same reason, it is extensively hydrated and has very high hydration enthalpy. So that is what we see. The metal solid, it becomes metal gaseous. This is how the ionization enthalpy is defined. So metal gaseous to metal plus, and gaseous plus electrons. So up to here, what we see, ionization enthalpy. So up to here, the value we get the ionization enthalpy. However, the another term comes in the aqueous solution. There is the hydration enthalpy, and this gaseous cation, when it goes into water, interacts with the water molecules, it will be M plus aqueous. And as M plus aqueous is now energetically favorable, this is, we need to provide certain energy to make a solid metal to form gaseous metal, and then from gaseous metal to remove an electron from the neutral atom. That in these two processes, we need to provide certain energy. And finally, what we get, some energy is released when the gaseous cation is interacting with the water molecules to become aqueous metal ion, and that we call the hydration enthalpy that we have seen earlier. So this entire process, this is energy releasing process. Here energy is liberated, and so this also defines the overall standard oxidation potential. It helps us determine those values. So this high hydration enthalpy compensates for the high energy needed to remove one electron in lithium, and thus lithium has a greater tendency to lose electrons in solution and not in the gaseous form. When we talk about ionization enthalpy, we are talking in the removing electron from the gaseous atom. And when we are talking about reducing property, we are talking about removing electron in the aqueous solution. And so in aqueous solution, lithium is the one which can give its electron most easily. And that is why its the oxidation potential is highest, means that its reducing property is highest. So it will very easily give its electron. And therefore, lithium is the strongest reducing agent. I hope the reason is clear. The chemical properties, now look at the chemical properties of this other chemical properties of this alkali metals, that is reducing properties, also the chemical properties. So alkali metals are highly reactive. So actually this shading should be there. I forgot to write that there. So the chemical reducing property, the oxidation potential that we have seen, that is also the chemical property. Please don't get confused. So alkali metals are highly reactive due to their large size and low ionization enthalpy. They are very reactive. They can easily give its electron and react very fast with any other element to form compounds. They are very highly reactive. They form most of the compound very vigorously, almost explosively. So, and the reactivity of these metals increases down the group. Why? Because the electropositive character increases down the group usually. So oxides and hydroxides of the alkali metals, usually what means the reactivity towards air. If you look at, so in the air, oxygen is there, the nitrogen is there, hydrogen is there. Those gases, the hydrogen is not in the lower strata of the atmosphere. It's because of the being lighter, it will be above, not mostly in the stratosphere. Its concentration is very low. So almost no hydrogen gas will be there in this region of the atmosphere where we are actually living. So the oxygen, usually all the gases that you see in the air, mostly oxygen is the most reactive. And why it is most reactive? Because it has two unpaired electrons, and that we have seen in when we have seen this molecular orbital theory. So oxygen has two unpaired electrons. So there, and because of, so oxygen has two unpaired electrons, and that is why, because of presence of unpaired electrons, it is more reactive. Even though oxygen there is double bond. If despite the double bond, one should expect that the oxygen should be more stable, but it is reactive. Why? As I said, the two unpaired electrons are there. It is paramagnetic, and other reason is both the oxygen atoms will have lone pairs, and because of the lone pair will repel each other. So they don't like each other much because there is a repulsion between lone pair electrons in the oxygen molecule. And that is why oxygen is the one of the most reactive. Nitrogen also has lone pairs because it has only one, but it has only one lone pair. Is nitrogen is nitrogen molecule, and also nitrogen has three triple bond, three covalent bonds between two nitrogen atoms. That is why it is mostly inert. It doesn't react with the most of the cases in the atmosphere, and that is the reason why nitrogen is there in the atmosphere in the larger concentration. High amount oxygen on the Earth, oxygen overall concentration, presence of oxygen, percentage existence is of oxygen is more than nitrogen, but oxygen mostly there in the water, in the form or the silica, that the sand or the all the rock. It is there. It is in the combined form, not in the free form. The nitrogen is mostly there in the nitrogen, and it also forms certain compounds, but the compounds are very less in comparison to oxygen. So the alkali metals they tarnish in dry air. Dry air means if the air doesn't have any moisture. Dry air means what usually air also contains moisture, and moisture because the evaporation happens at all the temperatures, whether sun is there or not. Because evaporation, we have seen some water molecules at the surfaces of the water body, they will go into the gaseous phase, and so the some water molecule usually exist in the atmosphere. But one can have dry air, one can absorb all the water molecules artificially, because we can use some anhydrous agents and it will absorb all the water molecules, and so the dry air will be left. So even the oxygen reacts with dry air. Dry air means there is no water vapor, no water molecules in the air, and it forms it tarnished. Alkali metals get tarnished due to the formation of their oxides, which in turn react with the moisture to form hydroxide. So if moisture is there, so it will also react. This oxide of the alkali metals will react with the moisture, with the water molecules that is there in the moisture, and it will form hydroxides. And hydroxides, what we know, alkali metal hydroxides, NaOH. You might have read NaOH, the very KOH. These are examples. They are alkalis, they are bases, and based on that, because their hydroxides are alkali, and when their oxides are basic in nature, that is why the name of this group came the alkali metal. So they react the oxide of alkali metals react with the water vapor or water to form hydroxide. So alkali metal, when they react with water directly, they can also direct metal from metal. We can also form hydroxide. So they burn vigorously in oxygen, forming oxides. Vigorously means very highly reactive towards the oxygen. They are therefore kept in kerosene or paraffin oil to protect them from the air, because if you keep them in the open air, they will immediately react with the water, and immediately means the very fast they will react with the water or oxygen will very fast they will react with the oxygen. That is why we put them into the kerosene. They also react very fast with the water. That is why we don't put them in the water, because they react with water. So where we keep them in kerosene or paraffin oil, because they do not react with kerosene or paraffin oil, and that way they are also insulated from the air, the oxygen. When burnt in air, the oxygen mostly remains oxygen. Lithium forms lithium oxide, sodium forms sodium peroxide, and other alkali metals form superoxide. This is one thing that I have explained in the redox chemistry as well. So, but here it will be in the more details. So what you see, the lithium forms normal oxide. Normal oxide means the oxygen oxidation state is -2. Then for the sodium, what we see, sodium forms peroxide. Peroxide means what? We have seen O2, 2 minus. Oxide has one oxygen atom which will have two negative charge. Peroxide is two oxygen atoms are together and they will have together two negative charge. So one oxygen will have effectively one negative charge. That is peroxide. And then we have looked at the superoxide. And superoxide is what? The oxygen molecule is there. You just add one electron to the oxygen molecule. So it will be only one negative charge, so that is superoxide. So the metals which reacts more vigorously, which has more electron donating tendency, which is more electropositive, it will give its electron very easily, and it gives its electron to a very weak electron acceptor like oxygen molecule. Oxygen molecule is a weak electron acceptor. Why it is weak electron acceptor? That because if you remember the molecular orbital theory or molecular orbitals of oxygen atom, it will be sigma 1s, then sigma star 1s, then sigma 2s, sigma star 2s, sigma 2pz, then pi 2px and pi 2py. They will have their degenerate orbitals, molecular orbitals, pi 2px, pi 2py. All these orbitals will have 2 electrons. Now what comes? Pi star 2px and pi star 2py. And this pi star 2px and pi star 2py, they are also degenerate molecular orbitals, means they have same energy, and these both the electrons contain one electron. Those both of these orbitals, pi star 2px and pi star 2py, you can rename them other ways, that depends on the book. Sometimes we say it is 2pjy and 2pz. Some books, it's a name, it just, it doesn't matter, it's the concept that is important. So it's, let us call it as a pi star 2px and pi star 2py degenerate anti-bonding molecular orbital. Pi star means anti-bonding molecular orbitals. Both of these orbitals contain one electron. And when they contain a one electron, that is why two unpaired electrons are there in oxygen. They are unpaired. And these unpaired electrons are there. If you want to add one electron, extra electron to it, it will not be that feasible. It is not reactive, because you are adding one electron to anti-bonding orbital, which will actually, what it will do, it will decrease the bond order of in the oxygen molecule. And the bond order in the oxygen molecule that was there, it will decrease, because the bond order of oxygen initially it was 2, the double bond, and now it will decrease because the number of electrons in anti-bonding orbital has increased. One electron increased and it is divided by 2, so the bond order will be decreased by half. So the from oxygen molecule, if you look at, the bond order is 2, and the O2 minus superoxide bond order is 1.5. So bond order has decreased, and so accepting electron is that much, is not that facile. But if the metal is very electropositive, its electropositive character is very high, so it can even force oxygen molecule to accept electrons. So, and so this is because of the very high electropositive character from the potassium to the cesium. But we see they also form superoxides. Similar thing you can see for the peroxide as well. So sodium is very, has very strong tendency to give its electrons, so it forms peroxide. And the lithium, it forms oxides, because there you see the complete breaking of that O bond anyway. And what, because the lithium gives electron. And another thing is, another way to interpret it that is more important is, the alkali metals, their ion, their size is more, their size is larger. And oxygen, if you have oxide, it's smaller in size. And superoxides, peroxide, you see they are larger in size, so they can accommodate more larger anions. If the cation size is larger, they can accommodate more larger anions. And if they can accommodate more larger anions and they form ionic compounds, so what will you see? There will be more anions towards nearby them, because cations are usually smaller in size. So they, if they accommodate more anions in their vicinity, so the lattice enthalpy will be more. And since lithium is very small in size, it cannot accommodate O2 2 minus or O2 single minus. This is the most fundamental, most important reason. That is why the lattice enthalpy is decreased. And since lattice enthalpy for the super peroxide and superoxide with the lithium is least, so it forms mostly oxide. Then one can have optimum number of anions surrounding cation. And in this case, it will not happen. Even if you say the sodium and oxygen, then there will be that optimum level, because anions should also be surrounded by cations. And usually, if you look at the solid state that we have seen, usually cations, they occupy some voids, octahedral and tetrahedral voids. So those voids, at those gaps, these cations go, they sit there to maximize the interaction, the coordination number. And that is what we see, that their net balance comes, and this is the ultimate result that is important for us. The lithium forms normal oxide, oxygen in 2 minus 2 oxidation state, sodium forms peroxide, and other alkali metals, potassium, rubidium, and cesium, they form superoxide. And superoxide is what? O2 single minus. Peroxide, it is O2 2 minus, and oxide, it is O2 minus. And all other things what we have seen, since we have learned that alkali metals, they will always exist in +1 oxidation state. So in all these compounds, what we see, the oxidation state of alkali metal is always +1. So this is alkali metal, whether it is potassium, rubidium, cesium, it is plus charge. So there will be one negative charge to make that molecule neutral. So that is why there is one negative charge on this superoxide, that this O2 part OT anion, and that we call superoxide. Here two sodium atoms are there. So there will be two plus charge, and those two plus charge will be two oxygen atoms. Here two lithium atoms, and each atom has +1 charge. So two electrons, two positive charge. So two negative charge must be there on oxygen to make it the entire molecule neutral, which is oxide. So this is how we interpret. So thus reactivity of alkali metals with oxygen increases down the group, and why reactivity, the affinity, electropositive character increases. So the alkali metals affinity with oxygen increases down the group. In all these oxides, the oxidation state of alkali metals is always +1, because sometimes questions have been asked in the KO2, what is oxidation state of alkali metal? So usually what we think that oxygen will have -2 oxidation state. So alkali metals will have what? -2 into 2, -4. So -4 plus alkali metals oxidation state equals to 0. So alkali metals oxidation state would be +4. That will be disaster if you write that. It will never happen, because they usually they do not give more than, they cannot give more than one electron in normal conditions, in natural conditions. In certain harsh conditions which man can provide artificially, then only. And usually what KO2 is a natural compound. So then increasing stability of peroxides or superoxides as the size of metal ion increases due to the stabilization of large anion by larger cation through higher lattice energy. This is what I have explained. So you should also remember, because of the large cation and large anion, when they interact, the lattice energy will be more, because there will be optimum number of cations surrounding anion, and anions surrounding cations. Surrounded by cations surrounded by anions, and ions surrounded by cations. There will be certain optimum level, and that depends on the charge, their atomic radius and the charge. And so this is what we get, the optimum level for the cation and anion. They are in similar in size, coordination number will be more. So the coordination number, again, how many cations surrounding anion is the coordination number, or anion surrounding the cation is the oxidation. Coordination number. Coordination number, please remember. Coordination number, when we look into the coordination chemistry, that is a different, where there we see how many ligands is surrounding a metal or metal cation. So that, though the conceptually they are same, the direct interaction is also there, and here also we see direct interaction is how many anions their radius in the direct contact with the outermost or the surface of the cation, or how many cations their surface is in the direct contact or in the touch with the surface, outermost surface of the anion. This is what the coordination number of an ionic compound is. So this kind of interpretations are also given in certain books. So but I find these are not very logical, even though since they are there. So I have given it to you. So due to a small size, lithium has a strong positive field around it that attracts the negative charge so strongly that it does not allow the oxide ion or the O2 minus to combine with another oxygen to form peroxide ion. So because when oxide O2 minus, when it combines with another neutral oxygen atom, it will form peroxide. So it says that if the oxidation state of lithium is, since it is +1 and it is smaller in size, so what is electropositive? Usually what will happen, the field, when you look at its surface, electric field, because the radius is smaller and it has certain charge, so that field will be stronger, and because the field is stronger, it will not allow oxides to combine with another oxygen. So this is, the peroxide is not formed with the lithium. And with the sodium, this is the last topic. After that I'll stop. So on the other hand, Na plus sodium ion, because of its larger size in comparison to the lithium plus ion, lithium cation, it comparatively weaker positive field around it is created, which cannot prevent O2 minus ion to combine with another oxygen ion to form peroxide, and the peroxide ion, that we see O2 2 minus. And in the case of other cations, what we see, the positive field is further weaker, and further weaker. In that case, what will happen? They cannot even prevent O2 minus ion to combine with oxygen atoms to form superoxides. Superoxides, this is O2, 2 minus, sorry. So this is a mistake here. This is the superoxide. So lithium, then what we see, the lithium also reacts. Usually other metals do not react with nitrogen, because we see nitrogen is usually an inert gas, and because the triple bond is there and the lone pair repulsion is also not that significant as in the case of oxygen. So it is what usually inert gas. And what lithium, it can react with the nitrogen, and so lithium forms Li3N, and that one can see lithium size is comparable to the nitrogen nitride ion. So one can, and this is lithium cation, so one can see that this kind of formation is there. So may not comparable because this is a smaller in size than the nitride ion. So what we can see in the case, look at the sodium ion, there was usually other metals, only lithium forms this nitride. And what is the, let us see this question, oxidation state of potassium and KO2. This is KO2, so KO2 means potassium superoxide, and so superoxides that we know it is O2. So again mistake. A single or maybe one minus you can write here. So superoxide, so the oxidation state of KO2, K, potassium and KO2 will be +1, because this +1 charge is balanced by this 1 minus charge, and that is why they are electrically neutral. So one can find out this is a, and anyway we know the potassium is oxidation state in any compound will always be +1, so that way we can also answer it. Based on that, one can find out how many negative, what is the negative charge on this O2 moiety. So all alkali metals, their oxides, peroxides, and superoxides readily dissolve in water to produce corresponding hydroxides, which are strong alkali. So alkali metals can also react with water and to form what, hydroxides plus hydrogen gas will be liberated. So hydroxide is what, MOH, the NaOH. So M is alkali metal, so LiOH will be formed, NaOH will be formed, KOH, CSH, this CSOH. This is how it will form. So the alkali metals reacting with water, it forms hydroxides, which are alkali. Alkali means what? They will be easily ionized in water, and they will form metal ion, and hydroxides and OH minus ions, or the hydroxyl ions, and these are alkali. So this is the alkali metal name came. So not only that, we have also seen the alkali metal oxides, they can also react with water. So there is this sign is, arrow is left here. So the oxides can also react with water to form alkali. This is what we see here. And this is sodium peroxide. It can also, this is a normal oxide, a peroxide. Sodium also forms normal oxides, but their presence is very less. Usually, if enough time is given, it forms peroxide. So sodium peroxide, it reacts with the water, and it forms NaOH, and this H2O2 will be also there because the peroxide will be there. So NaOH, the KO2, so KO2 it forms oxygen, H2O2 plus KOH. So what we see, so all the oxides of alkali metals, when they are exposed to water or the moisture, they form alkalis, they form bases, or the alkali, their hydroxides they form. And not only there, the oxides of alkali metals, even the alkali metals, pure alkali metals, when react with water or the moisture, they also form these hydroxides, and that we see here. This is M plus OH minus means MOH, MOH, this NaOH is MOH, or KOH is also MOH, or this is M plus OH minus. So basic strength of these hydroxides increases as we go down the group, and as we go down the group, basic nature increases. Why? Because now the positive character of these compounds are increases. So that way we go down the group from lithium to cesium. All these hydroxides are highly soluble in water, and thermally stable except lithium hydroxide. So lithium hydroxide is not very highly soluble in water. So it doesn't impart, it's not 100% ionization we do not see. So the lithium hydroxide we can consider as a weak electrolyte. Otherwise, all the other hydroxides are a strong electrolyte. And why lithium hydroxide is a weak electrolyte, or the its ionization is not 100%, is not 100% dissolved in water? This is because the lithium ion is a smaller ion, and the smaller ion OH minus this is smaller ion, and anion interaction will be stronger. So alkali metal hydroxides being strongly basic react with acids to form, so they are bases, so they react with acid to form water. And this, I will stop here. I hope what I have explained was clear to you.